I said, I will have more about that on Sonic Cinema when we continue. So, the reason I wanted to do this live stream now is because tomorrow is the start of the 2022 Atlanta Film Festival. This was the Atlanta Film Festival was the first one to say yes to me covering it in 2019. So obviously, I feel a bit of loyalty towards it. And honestly, I was thinking about it in getting ready to cover the festival this year. I think as much as I've loved things about each of the festivals I've covered, whether it's Fantasia Fest, whether it's Sundance, whether it's Renegade. I think the I think the lineup of films that I've gotten on a yearly basis from the Atlanta Film Festival is probably my favorite. And thinking about the movies that really affected me in past years, whether it was The Farewell and Afterlife in 2019, whether it was Curtis, The Miseducation of Bendu, or The Killing of Two Lovers in 2020. Last year, there was Clean Slate, there was Moon Manor, there was 9 Days, and there was Achilles Escape. And I really wanted, this is going to be interesting because of the fact that I'm actually going to be working my regular hours in between the film festival as well. And we'll get into that a little bit. That's kind of the way it had to go this year. There's not really much that can be done with it. But that being said, I'm really looking forward to the lineup and what I've got on tap for this year. And because of the fact that I've had screener access, I've already been able to see a few films. And based on how I was able to work my schedule, I've already got some great films lined up for the next week and a half. So that being said, tomorrow is the opening of not only the in-person screenings, which they're fully in person. There are no drive-through, drive-in screenings this year. Pour one out for those. They were absolutely terrific to go to in 2020 and 2021, but the plaza has done away with the drive-in, so it's time to go back to in person, and I'm really looking forward to that. It was great to be back in the plaza last year when I covered it. But I enjoyed the drive-in. It was fun to be able to do that, have that experience. And then also tomorrow they are still doing their virtual aspect of it, which has been really well done over the past couple of years. I think it is between that and Sundance. I think actually to a certain extent, I think what the Atlanta Film Festival has done with their hybrid, with their virtual access has been really great. Um, it's not exclusively, you have a little bit more leeway with your access to these films. If you're a member of the press, you basically can watch as much as you want, which is terrific. And especially for somebody who has loved the programs over the past few years as much as I have, it's been terrific. So I've like I so there are going to be some with the virtual catalog. There are going to be some things that are going to be available throughout the festival. The Creative Conference, there's some things from the Creative Conference that also takes place that are going to be available throughout the festival. There are going to be features that are going to be available throughout the festival. There are going to be short film blocks that are going to be available throughout the festival. But some of them they're also going to be some of the movies that are not going to be able throughout the Festival, the access is going to coincide with the in-person screening. And I really like that aspect of it. And I really like what they're doing with that this year. Um, and there are some that I'm really looking forward to checking out. And just a minute here. I'm gonna bring up the. I'm actually what I'm gonna do is I'm going to copy in the film guide for the Atlanta Film Festival so that you can check it out. And okay, so I'm just now seeing this. So Film Detective is a little bit like Criterion Collection, except they do more B movies and a little bit movies that are kind of more forgotten than the higher profile ones. And I think I think that's one of the things that I like about Film Detective that Criterion doesn't really do enough of. I think Criterion really focuses uh, a lot more on titles that you're familiar with, and but uh, Film Detective goes really deep dive. That being said, there are going to be ones that you know are familiar, are out there, and have some reputations. A Life at Stake, which I really loved, is a film noir with Angela Lansbury. They also did a Sherlock Holmes vault collection of early Sherlock Holmes stories and films. And one of the things I loved about what they did there is it wasn't just like for features. They also found silent films that were available that use the Sherlock Holmes character, and it's really a terrific set. But that you can listen to a little bit of the podcast with foreign, not really. That is this is more B movies in terms of just American cinema. They haven't really done anything that I've noticed that is foreign films. So in that case, Criterion Collection I think is more valuable when it comes to foreign films. But I the thing that I love about Film Detective is how deep some of these cuts go. Uh, so, that being said, let's go to the Atlanta Film Festival. And the catalog for the virtual catalog is going to be available midnight, actually. So that's actually pretty exciting. So basically, if you wanted to stay up at midnight and you were interested in taking in some of that, you could rent movie short film blocks and some of the features as early as midnight tonight from the Atlanta Film Festival. I there are a few there is one that I've already checked out, and that review will be running tomorrow. It is Learn to Swim, which is about a jazz musician who is kind of isolating himself after a tragedy. And the way this is played at other film festivals, and one of the things that's kind of interesting about this movie is the style the narrative, and the way the narrative kind of shifts in and out of past and present, and the way it does it is very very compelling, and it's a little hard to follow, but at the same time you still kind of go with it because of the nature of the style, the visual style, the musical style. It's really an interesting film. I'll have a review of that in about 12 hours, actually. Uh, some of the other movies from the virtual catalog that are going to be available that I will probably be checking out. The Game, Daughter of a Lost Bird. Let's see what else. Quickening, Portraits from a Fire, and you can log on to and you can check out the virtual catalog and see what some of these are about. And let's see, I think that's about it right now as far as the ones that are available throughout the entire festival. And then there are going to be short film blocks as well. There are going to be a couple of short film blocks. In addition to Learn to Swim, which I just watched today, I've also screened a couple of other movies. Only I Can Hear, which is a documentary short, which centers on Coda youth, um, and it's like 55 minutes long. It's about a three teenagers, three young adults who are Coda, who are children of deaf adults. And it's really actually kind of an interesting bookend, I think, to the movie Coda. And I think, Coda, the movie, gives you kind of this sentimentalized version of that. But watching Only I Can Hear is kind of interesting to see how they how the film kind of doesn't quite get as right as maybe you would have liked. It's still a very effective film. It's still a lovely film, but I think Only I Can Hear kind of pokes a few holes in that. It's actually screening at the festival next Wednesday, and I'm going to be at a different screening at the time, so I won't be able to see it. But so I watched it during my screener access for it, and that review is going to be posting next Wednesday. Screening this Saturday is Out of the Muck, which is a documentary about a family in a community in Florida. And it's in a small town of Florida. It's only got 6,200 people. And it's a movie that I really am kind of intrigued by because of the fact that it's sort of one of these travelogue love letters to your past and learning about your past from the filmmaker, but it's done in a really wonderful way where it talks about social issues, it talks about the family, and also talks about it really shines a light on the community. And I love the way it shines a light on the community in this case. It's really quite fascinating. And that one has its live screening, in person screening on Saturday. I will not be able to attend it. So I decided to check out that screening. There are going to be a few others like that where I'm having to work at the time, so I won't necessarily be able to see that screening. Uh, Refuge is another one from Saturday that I definitely am going to have to watch on the virtual platform, or or at least watch via screener. And there are a number of movies like that. Hecate, which is a story about two people who, following a horrific event, they are arguing on the road, and they're not quite sure where they're going. And it's kind of a genre film, kind of a romance, but it's kind of an interesting movie. It's playing next Wednesday, and I could be able to see it, but I'm also opening the next day, so that will be something that I probably watch on the virtual platform more than in person. So, what movies am I going to be watching during the festival? So, tomorrow night we begin with a short film block of 100 feet of film, which is a 100 feet short film contest that they do. That's at 6 p.m. That's at the Plaza, which one thing I love about the film festival, gives me more and more excuse to go to Plaza. And then at 8:30, they're screening Cha Cha Real Smooth, which I missed at the Sundance Film Festival this year, and I'm really looking forward to checking it out here. And Friday is actually the same thing. That is the opening night movie, which is 892, which also played at Sundance to relative acclaim. The director by Damaris Corbin is going to be there on the red carpet, which I will be covering. And that's at 7 o'clock at the Plaza. And I'm looking forward to that as well. Saturday, I am working, so I won't be seeing any in person, but I've already seen Out of the Muck, so I've seen that for that day. I want to see Refuge, so I will be planning on seeing that for that day as well. Sunday, I'm working in the morning as well, but I will be able to go there in the evening to watch Marcel the Show with Shoes On, which I really cannot wait to see. And then a documentary called Boycott. And I'm really looking forward to both of those. I think it's going to Boycott is when a news publisher in Arkansas, an attorney in Arizona, and a speech therapist in Texas are told they must choose between their jobs and their political beliefs, they launch legal battles that expose and attack on freedom of speech across 33 states in America. It's and I'm that's the type of documentary that I think they program really well. And I one of the things that I love about the Atlanta Film Festival and the way they program things is they really explore personal stories in a way that they program stories in a way that are very empathetic and that really show a lot of sympathy towards their subjects. Monday and Tuesday night I'm going to be working, so I won't be able to see any screenings there. That's going to be one of those days where I will probably work on screenings at home before over the virtual catalog before going into work. Wednesday, I'm going to be watching A Love Song, which is another Sundance movie that I missed, but I was curious about seeing. So I'm going to be seeing that on Wednesday night. And Hecate is also playing that night, but like I said, I'm probably going to do that on the virtual platform instead. And then Thursday, I work during the day, but I will be watching the Murder Podcast down at the Plaza at 7 o'clock that day. And I'm really looking forward to that one. And let me bring up Murder Podcast. Desperate to get more podcast listeners, Chad Thadwick decides he needs a new topic. After a murder in his hometown, the answer is clear: true crime podcast. With the help of his best friend, Chad starts investigating, only to get wrapped up in a terrifying adventure full of supernatural threats. I love this kind of really out there supernatural type movie, genre movie. They typically have some really good ones there. And then the closing night movie, which hopefully I will get to be able to cover as well, is Maijo, which is another movie I played at Sundance that I missed at Sundance. And that is it for my schedule. One movie that did play Sundance that I did see at Sundance because it was one that Nathan Halpern composed the music for was Emily the Criminal with Aubrey Plaza. That was an entertaining thriller. And if you get a chance to see it at some point throughout the year, I highly recommend it. It's an entertaining movie. Aubrey Plaza is really good in it. And Halpern's score is really interesting. So I hope that people take a chance to see that. Some of the other movies that I am planning on checking out throughout the festival are, let me get to that. The Game, which is about a smuggler with poor parenting skills who becomes stranded with two refugee boys. Miles from Nowhere, which is about a person named Miles who's dying. After a year of avoiding his two closest friends, he attempts to reestablish normalcy by gathering them together for their annual cabin trip. And he wants to tell them about his diagnosis, but things go awry. Portraits from a Fire, which is about a teenager who spends his days filmmaking um, and vlogging about his community, and he he has a hard time with his father and his family. And that's one that kind of caught my attention. And then Quickening, which is about Pakistani Canadian teenager who's struggling to define her identity as she is pulled between her newfound social life and her family's traditional values. Daughter of a Lost Bird, it's a documentary about an Indian child who is adopted by a white family, and she then tries to discover her birth mother, and that's another one of these documentaries that I really am always impressed by the way they program these. And then there's Master of Light, which is about classical painter George Anthony Morton, who spent 10 years in federal prison dealing drugs. And that one is really interesting to me. It kind of reminds me, it'll be kind of interesting to see how that one turns out. Those type of stories are, again, they're the type of thing that I think the Atlanta Film Festival really prides itself on giving people. And I think that's one of those things that I'm really looking forward to seeing. So that's kind of it. There wasn't really a whole lot more that I wanted to talk about. If you are inspired to check out the Atlanta Film Festival, at least their virtual catalog, if you're not in the area, feel free to. I think there's certainly going to be a few gems that I think show up on that virtual catalog for you. And because they always do a really lovely job programming. If you are in Atlanta and you happen to be going to one of those screenings that I'm going to be going to, feel free to say hi. It's going to be good to be back to doing full in person. That's one of the things that really occurred to me during Renegade, that I really miss the in-person aspect of that. And in that one, it was the community, because I love how close knit the community that Vanessa, the festival director, has built around there, and the fact that it's just in one place, the fact that it's at the Strand in Marietta, I think that is just a really lovely thing that they're able to do. So that is it for this episode of the Songs of a Movie Chat. It's good to be back. It's good to be able to talk about things again. I do hope to do this more on a regular basis. We'll see where the year leads. I make no promises. Hopefully it won't be 3 months before my next broadcast, though. I will try to probably do a few quick broadcasts during the Atlanta Film Festival, though. For now, though, this is Brian Scuttle. Check us out at patreon.com/SonicCinema. Subscribe, like, and rate and review the Sonic Cinema podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. And always check out the written work at www.sonic-cinema.com. Thank you very much.